Hi, I'm Veronica and welcome to my channel. Today another video from the series of simple somatic movements. I will show you pelvic rotation, and I recommend you that first you get accustomed with pelvic tilt, which you can find here, before you proceed to working with pelvic circles. Let's start by making our way down to the ground. So roll yourself down, and you can begin by making some little movements, maybe swaying your pelvis or massaging yourself gently against the floor. You might roll your head. Do anything that you need to do to make yourself more comfortable in this position. And eventually, you're going to land in a constructive rest. So that's this position when you have your knees bent and feet on the mat. And you want to find a place where your groin and your back can stay relaxed. You have all your natural curves in the spine. So that's the kind of position that when you fall asleep, your legs would still stay in the same place. So after you've made those little adjustments, maybe some tiny movements with the feet, changing the angle, or choosing where is most restful for your arms to be, you can stay for a moment in stillness. So it's always good to give yourself a couple of breaths to invite your body to sink deeper, to yield into the floor. So you're giving the weight through the feet, back of the pelvis, through the back of the rib cage, your shoulder blades, arms, and back of the head. And we're going to revisit a pelvic tilt. I'm not going to explain it too much in detail, so you can always check out this video first. This is the movement that might be starting from the tail or from the pelvis itself, and it's about the movement. If you imagine the 6 and 12 o'clock on the clock face. It's nice if it goes together with the breath, but it's not absolutely necessary. So you might be rotating your pelvis forward and arching the spine when you inhale and bringing the lower back towards the floor when you exhale. It doesn't need to be a very big movement. I'm now making it a little bit exaggerated so that you see it clearly, but it could be far more subtle than that. But this is basically our direction. This is 6 and 12. Okay, and after a couple of these, you can give it a break, and then you're going to visit 3 and 9 o'clock on that imaginary clock face. So that's when you give more weight towards the right hip and right side of the pelvis, and then more weight towards the left side of the pelvis. So as you can see, the legs are not dropping from side to side. The legs are staying in place. They are not. They're moving only in response to the movement of the pelvis. So obviously they will move a little bit, but just because of that shifting of the weight, a little bit more weight towards the left side of the pelvis, and a little bit more weight towards the right side of the pelvis. So this is the movement now, right, left, 9, 2, 3. And again, you want to wait until this movement is really fluid without any moments of hesitation, those moments when you're kind of feeling you're overcoming an obstacle, or as if something was pulling you back or something felt a little bit rusty. You want it to be really fluid before you carry on. So it's almost we made a cross now, right? We had this vertical line, 6, 12, and the horizontal line 93. And it might take you much longer than what I'm showing now. It might take you a good 5 minutes just to find that smoothness and fluidity in each of these directions. But as I want to show you the whole uh, spinning wheel movement, I will just speed it up a tiny bit. And now after we had the cross, so the vertical and the horizontal, we'll think of diagonal lines. So it's as if it was between, let's say, 1 and 7 o'clock. So basically there's a little bit more weight towards the left side of the pelvis, but closer with your lower back closer towards the ground, and more weight towards the right side of the pelvis, but with this side of the back arched. That is our diagonal line. And very often when you do it for the first time, it might feel very awkward, it won't be smooth at all. And also you might notice some area of tension. So always you can slow it down until you really start feeling it. Once you found this diagonal line, you can find the opposite diagonal line. So a little bit more weight towards the right side of the pelvis, with the right lower back coming closer towards the ground, and this left side arching, and more weight towards the bottom left side of the pelvis when the right side of the lower back is arching. So basically you're combining those two planes, right? So it's not just the shifting of the weight from right side of the pelvis to the left, or not just the rotation of the pelvis forward and backward, and your lower back arching and flattening. It's the combination of the two on the diagonal line, which obviously make it far more tricky and technical. So it might take you a long time until you make this movement really consciously and fluidly, as this is not what your pelvis normally does. It's not the kind of movement you do in everyday life, right? So it will take some time for those new neural connections to strengthen. But if you've got that, the vertical line, the horizontal line, and both diagonal lines, then eventually you could combine it into this kind of pelvic dance, and it's you could think of it as a spinning plate. So if you had that, you know, when the plate falls and it creates this kind of spinning movement before it eventually settles flat. So this is what the pelvis will be doing now, going through the clock face, meeting all the hours on the clock. So you're not skipping any parts, you want it to be really smooth, and you want it to resemble a circle rather than some figure with lots of sharp angles. And there might be lots of discoveries along the way, those moments that something is suddenly pulling you, tugging you, doesn't allow you to go smoothly. If you find any place like this, slow down, go through it 3 times slower, and keep returning until it becomes completely smooth. As you can see, the neighboring structures might be responding, and even not neighboring actually, as the pelvis is always connected through the spine with the head. The head will have its own little dance. If you don't immobilize your head by creating purposeful tension because you want your head to be still, your head will be responding. So let that happen. It will have its own little dance, its own little circle that is like a reflection of what's going on in the pelvis. And you can, of course, play with changing the direction of your circles. So it might be going clockwise and then anti-clockwise. And your head, remember to keep it free so that it does its own thing. Let's make it clear, I'm not moving purposefully my head now. It's just responding to the movement that is happening in the pelvis. I let it happen. I don't make it. And eventually you could let it settle and just observe for yourself how does it feel. There might be some little responses, lots of tingling, throbbing, warmth, pulsation, and that's all fine. Let it all happen. Give yourself time to settle and to feel before you move on with your day. I hope that you enjoyed this practice, and if so, don't forget to leave me a like and comments. And if you are currently struggling with pain, you have any chronic pain, I also invite you to download my free short audio, The First Aid for Pain, which you can find on my website. I link it down below and you can find the address here. See you next time.